Hey girl, did you miss me? Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Admit it. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Why you're obsessed with me? You are so lovely. How pathetic. Oh my god, please. Have some composure. Like, ugh, gross. Anyways, I have a great show for you guys. I know I say every week, but it's because every week I make a great show. Duh. But on this week's episode, we are going to make a cocktail that I call, it's kind of like the evil sister of Paloma. It's going to be delicious. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be citrusy. It's going to be refreshing. It's going to be delicious. And we're going to get drunk. Yeah, duh. And then after that, we're going to have ourselves a nice little yap session. And I am going to talk about joy as an act of rebellion. And I'm going to talk about history. I'm going to talk about your ancestors. I'm going to talk about people who weren't related to you. And I'm also going to relate it back to you and what it means for you right now in this moment, okay? Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna talk about art, I'm gonna talk about music. It's gonna be like a plethora of things, but if you have a map, you're gonna be able to follow me. Just follow me. I trust you. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to follow me, okay? Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna do my final touches and then we'll see you. Hi folks, how are you? Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited. Welcome back to the Daily Show. If you live in the United States, I mean, even if you don't, the world is a bad place to work around, and you had to read the news, you were subjected to the news, you deserve a drink. You deserve a drink for surviving. And today we're going to make a drink. It's going to be kind of similar to a Paloma, except for we're going to add a little twist to make her a little bit more. We're just going to unbutton the Paloma just a little bit, give us a little something extra, you get what I'm saying? So here I'm gonna make like a citrus juice. So I have some fresh lemons, some orange juice, and some grapefruit here. And our secret ingredient is going to be the hot honey that we made last episode. I'm so excited about it. If you don't know what hot honey is or what the recipe is, that means that you didn't watch my last episode, and that really hurts my feelings. That actually makes me really sad. Why would you do that? So go watch that episode if you want the recipe for this, but we don't want it to go bad, so we're looking for excuses on how to use it. There is something about this particular recipe, I cannot tell you what it is, that kind of reminds me of like New Beginnings. I feel like maybe it's like the oranges and the grapefruit, which are very much breakfast fruits, and then the lemon being like a refreshing fruit. It's just like something about this is very fresh start. So I'm going to start by squeezing some lemon and some orange juice and some grapefruit in here. Once we have that mixed up, I'm going to take some of our hot honey here. And if you guys remember correctly, because you did watch the episode, our hot honey was made with fresh peppers, and the peppers have a smokiness to them, which is why we added so much citrus juice in hopes to kind of balance out that smokiness. Yes, super smoky, super spicy, and we're just gonna add in some of that sweeten us. I still have some fresh peppers that were left in there, and they're shaking in there. I feel like that's probably enough because this is so spicy, because again, we left some peppers in there so they continue to marinate it long after we were done with it. Some ice now, as usual, and then of course, when we do cocktails, we're adding some vodka. So we're gonna add some vodka to it. 2, 3, just because, again, it's not perfect, we deserve it. We deserve it. And then we're gonna give her a good old shake. And again, until the bottom of your glass is like freezing. Feel my fingers anymore, which is where we're at right now. So I'm gonna give her a little smell. Very, very, very smoky. I can already smell the spiciness. I have my glass here. I'm gonna take a cube of ice, and then I'm just gonna like hit it with the back of my middle spoon here. Very ghetto. This is very ghetto. But in an attempt to break it up into smaller pieces, I just kind of feel like I want smaller ice cubes here. My hands are freezing. Little grapefruit slice here, and I'm just gonna put her against the wall of the glass, if that makes sense, just to kind of give us a pretty little garnish. And usually I would use a knife, and I'm being lazy about going into the kitchen. And I kind of stuck. Okay, it looks really ugly because I stuffed it in there. We're gonna do the orange instead because I ruined the grapefruit by stuffing her in here. So here goes the orange, and then I will do the same thing on the other side with our lemon. See? Pretty, pretty, pretty. And now we'll just strain our drink into it. And then since we have the grapefruit still, I'm just gonna cut her in half where she was breaking off at anyways, and just put that in there as a, oh, now it fits. But yeah, that's our drink. Look at how pretty she is. Now tell me that's not a good way to start your day. It's like starting your day on the farm. It's like what a healthy breakfast. Cheers. That is delicious. It's the perfect amount of smokiness and spiciness, and like you can taste the citrus at the tip of your tongue and the honey, but in the back of your throat you can taste like the spiciness and the chilies. It's so good. This is the kind of drink you treat yourself with after you stayed up all night looking through your boyfriend's phone. This is how you wake up. Yeah, for sure. All right, now, after a word from our sponsors, we're gonna get into our Yap session, okay? So here is a little word from our sponsor. After the commercial break, we'll be right back. Did Kamala Harris feel like an unqualified person to run for presidency to you? Could you quite not put your thumb onto why? But Meghan Markle always just kind of gave you a bad vibe. Between just us girls, she was a little bit of a B word. YourRacist.org is a nonprofit organization dedicated to teaching you to think differently. We are dedicated to beating you with a rolling pin until you unlearn some of those biases. It's our honor. Welcome back and welcome to another Yap session. If I'm yapping, they're snapping, okay? Earlier this week, I came across a woman's post who was talking about, a black woman who was talking about planning her wedding and feeling this immense amount of guilt and feeling like it was wrong for her to be planning a celebration when it feels like everything in the world is so wrong, right? Like she says it feels out of touch and inappropriate for her to be planning a wedding in the midst of all of this chaos. Which leads me to what I want to talk about today, which is joy as a form of rebellion. We are the very unlucky generation that's been gifted the burden of information. We have this 24-hour news cycle. We have so much information at the tip of your fingerprints, right? And there is so much in this instant flow of news and news and news 24 hours a day. As long as you have your phone out, as long as you are even out in the world, you are going to hear about something negative that is happening. 30 years ago, someone got stabbed in London. We wouldn't hear about it here in the US. And I think that like our brains were not meant to like try and make sense of that much information. Like we were never meant to know this much. Our eyes were never meant to be this open. And because of that, I think it forces us to see the world as a darker place, as a meaner place, as a scarier place. And not to say that it isn't, but there is this dooming fear of what is waiting for you outside of your front door, even though statistically crime has been going down for the past 30 years. But that's not the way that the world seems. The world seems the scariest and the meanest and the cruelest it's ever been. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Holdovers before, and if you haven't, you should watch it. It's an excellent movie. But at the end of the film, the teacher and the student go to a history museum, and the teacher says this quote: "There is nothing new in human experience, Mr. Tully. Each generation thinks it invented debauchery or suffering or rebellion. But man's every impulse and appetite, from the disgusting to the sublime, is on display right here all around you." So essentially saying that suffering and pain have been part of the human experience since the beginning of time. The world, unfortunately, has always been a bad place. And if you are waiting for conditions to be perfect for every single person on earth before you allow yourself to experience joy, before you allow yourself to experience happiness, you're going to die at a very, very old age. I was reading up on the antebellum weddings, and no, not Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' wedding, not them. Actually, you know what I just found out this week? You know that Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber also got married on a plantation? I did not know that until recently. That's interesting, given both of their racial histories. Anyways, focus. Antebellum weddings, which were weddings that happened on plantations between slaves, right? And when I was reading about it, I read that the priest who would perform the wedding ceremony, instead of saying "till death do us apart," the priest would say "till distance do us apart," because these slaves were getting married, this understanding that at any given moment, one of the two of them could be sold, and once they were sold and moved to a different plantation, they were never ever going to see each other again. So they had this dooming cloud of like catastrophe and like outside circumstances that could affect and force them to separate, and would still choose to do this gesture of getting married, right, of making this commitment to each other, even though they knew that the future was really questionable. So you're talking about people who are in the worst circumstances, the most evil circumstances you can possibly think of, still choosing to choose love, to choose faith, to choose hope. In 1918, the Spanish flu hits worldwide, which by the way is poorly named. It's named the Spanish flu, but it actually did not start in Spain. It started in the United States, and of course it picked up a name from somewhere else, like the US does, right? Named someone else. Very similar to COVID. But anyways, this hits, and 1/3 of the population catches this flu, right? And it is estimated that, and they have no way of knowing for sure, but it's estimated that about 50 million people died from this flu. Here are some photos of people getting married in 1918, 1919, and 1920. When talking about the 80s and the AIDS epidemic, Dan Savage says, "During the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced all night. The dance kept us in the fight because it was a dance we were fighting for. It didn't look like we were going to win them, and we did. It doesn't feel like we're going to win now, but we could. Keep fighting, keep dancing. I know times are dark, especially if you are a person of color, especially if you are a queer person. I want to remind you that our ancestors came from worse times. They lived through tougher situations than these, right? And so many of them sacrificed their lives so that we could have the privileges and the rights that we have today. And I think that the way that we honor their memory is by choosing joy. Joy is an act of rebellion. Joy is an act of resistance. It is the oppressor wants you to lose hope. The oppressor wants you to give up. The oppressor wants you to believe that there is nothing worth fighting for. And choosing to be happy, choosing to celebrate things, choosing to lean into family, choosing to lean into love, choosing to lean into community during difficult times is an act of resistance. Other non-traditional forms of joy are going to be being unique, like leaning into just being as much yourself as possible, being as loudly yourself as possible, right? Leaning away from trends and trying to make sure that you are being one of a kind, being less judgmental and giving other people room to express themselves.
Like, oh, let's make fun of the girl who took a risk and put herself out there creatively.
Self-expression is very much a form of rebellion. It is a form of resistance. I would argue that I've been making the argument that we're going to see music change because art is always political, no matter what people say. I don't like politics. If you like art, you like politics. Art is always a reflection. It's always reactionary to where we are in life, both fashion, music, film. And we are going to start to see more rebellion in that. I think that the tighter that this administration gets and the more control they try to have over free speech and over what can be said and what can be done in certain places, the way that people express themselves, we are going to see art get more rebellious. Specifically music, I would argue. I've talked about this. I think we're going to see the return of punk rock. We're going to see the return of like underground shows, right? Remember when Prohibition, when they tried to make alcohol illegal, so then all of a sudden there's this uprising of speakeasies and these underground clubs and these all-night parties and things of that sort. We're going to see the same thing happen with music. I think this administration is going to be very strict about what certain artists can and cannot say. So we're going to see a lot of independent artists come out and rise and be very blunt, very aggressive, very angry. We're going to see the return of that. There are already these girls in London called the Lamborghini. There you go. I can't read. I'm sorry. The Lamborghini girls who are making punk rock music that is very against Fight the Man, that is making music that is blatantly calling out homelessness, that is blatantly calling out racism in the UK, it's calling out violent crimes, it's calling out their government very specifically, very bold. And we are going to see a new generation of kids that are bringing that to the music industry, that are bringing that to the fashion industry. I talked about it a while ago, but I think that you always know where we're going politically because fashion is the first thing that steps in that direction. Fashion is always functional before it's anything else functional. Fashion is always a reflection of the times. So when fascism was knocking at our front door, I mean, fascism was in our house with its feet up, kicking, having a grand time. But when fascism was just knocking at the door, was up the road, the first place that you could see it was in fashion, right? When we started to see clean girl makeup, when we started to see soft girl makeup and the rich aesthetic, like all old money aesthetic, when we started to see all that, that's how we should have known that we were leaning towards conservatism. And a few of us who were smart were calling it out and being like, hey, this is just signs of conservatism. Hey, like we're bringing back these long dresses and these flowy dresses and we're doing the kind of Southern charm when we're leaning towards those places in fashion. That just means that we're moving towards being a more conservative country. And people were told, oh, you're just being dramatic. Oh, you're reading too much into it. It's not that deep. It is always that deep. Fashion is a form of art and art is always reflective of where we are politically. So I can see in the future that now that it's here, people are going to find a way to rebel. And one of the ways that they're going to rebel is that people are going to start dressing a lot more interesting. Clothing is going to get a lot weirder. The rules to how we dress, I think it's going to change a lot. Like I see a lot of like people like wearing, I already see it though. People are like, I wear a skirt, but wear it the wrong way. I wear a pair of pants, but wear it the wrong way. I think we're going to see a lot of that. People like breaking obvious fashion rules as a way, again, to rebel. These are small ways in which people choose to rebel. I think that this year's Grammys were also like a good turning point and a good reflection of the sharp turn, the 180 that we're about to make in all industries, right? Where we have big artists like Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift who make very traditional, very ordinary, very pop, very label produced, like machine behind them made music, and them going home empty handed, while seeing artists like Chappell Rowan win big awards, right? And people liking how bold she is, people liking the fact that she's assertive, people liking the fact that she's aggressive, that she speaks up for herself, that she speaks out for other people. A lot of that is what her appeal comes from, right? Also, her not dressing traditionally, her being very expressive about the way that she does her hair, the way that she wears her makeup, and the way that she dresses, and people really connecting with her authenticity, right? And I think people are leaning towards more art that's imperfect versus art that feels more manufactured. And I think we saw that through Taylor Swift's Lost over Chaperone's Win, and Billie Eilish as well. Even Beyonce's Win was still a move towards that, because she was breaking genres and doing something that's not traditional, not doing something that her label, or she's not a label anymore, but like that the grand scheme of the music industry would have called her to do. She went against tradition. Was like, no, I'm gonna make I'm gonna make an album in a different genre that I usually don't do. I'm going to break out of the box. So in the upcoming years, I see a lot more genre bending. I think that artists who have something to say and who have like very clear voices, very clear intention, are very intentional about their art, we are going to see them take front and center. Doechie's another great example. Doechie, whose sound is not really traditionally, I mean, it's hip hop, but it's not traditionally female hip hop. It's not what we expect female hip hop to win. And her sweeping up and getting all those awards is another great example of that. People are really leaning to people who have something very strong to say, who are authentically themselves. People want weird stuff. They are tired of being spoon-fed stuff, right? Like, here, this is what pop is supposed to sound like. This is what country is supposed to sound like. People are sick of that. And in small ways in which people are searching out rebellion. People are searching out in small, harmless ways that they can essentially rage against the machine, for lack of better words. Anyways, I say all that to say that I can feel really overwhelming, and like you can feel like immensely guilty for enjoying things, or feeling happiness, for celebrating things, when you are fully aware that there is so much suffering happening in the world. In the grand scheme of things, it feels a little bit cruel. But I want to remind you that choosing joy, choosing self-expression, choosing happiness, choosing to create art during troubled times is an act of rebellion, right? You are participating in the revolution when you are choosing to be happy regardless of the circumstances. To be like, no, I'm deserving of a good life. And yes, I'm going to fight for that good life, but I'm also going to enjoy that good life while it is here. Well, that's just my take on it. That's how I feel about it, okay? But thank you guys so much for watching. That's our whole episode for today, okay? I'll see you guys next week. Make sure you comment below and let me know what you guys want me to talk about next week, and I'll see you here, okay? Bye.